A White House official says U.S. President Donald Trump remains open to talking with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un without any preconditions. Trump also presided over a rare gathering of senior military leaders and called for greater military readiness to counter what he described as an invasion from within. South Korea is set to hold an annual ceremony today, marking the 77th anniversary of the founding of the country's armed forces. The event will feature advanced weapon systems incorporating AI, a taekwondo demonstration, and an aerobatic performance by the Black Eagles. President Lee Jae-myung has met with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in Busan. They discussed plans to create a joint consultative body aimed at tackling shared social issues that the two countries both face, such as aging populations. We begin this morning in the United States, where the White House says President Donald Trump remains open to dialogue with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un without preconditions. The U.S. leader also sharpened his rhetoric at home, calling for a stronger domestic role for the armed forces and warning of an invasion from within. Our Isung-jae starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump is signaling that he remains open to dialogue with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and this time without preconditions. A White House official told reporters Tuesday that Trump could be willing to meet Kim during his upcoming trip to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. The official's remarks came in response to questions about whether the U.S. leader is prepared to resume talks with Pyongyang, even without directly addressing the nuclear issue. This marks the first time the Trump administration has publicly confirmed that there are no preconditions for renewed dialogue. The official also noted that President Trump held 3 unprecedented summits with Kim during his first term that helped stabilize tensions on the Korean peninsula. Kim Jong-un himself said earlier this month he would consider resuming talks if Washington dropped its denuclearization demands. But while extending an olive branch abroad, Trump also sharpened his rhetoric at home. On Tuesday, he summoned hundreds of top military leaders and advisors to the Marine Corps base in Virginia. Speaking alongside Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Trump laid out what he described as a tougher, more uncompromising vision for America's armed forces. He proposed using U.S. cities as training grounds for troops and called for a greater military readiness to counter what he described as an invasion from within.
We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out.
At the same event, Hegseth declared an end to what he called woke culture in the military and unveiled new directives, including fitness standards set at male-level benchmarks for all service members, regardless of gender. The meeting underscored Trump's intent to remake military culture and assert a stronger domestic role for the armed forces. He warned that commanders unwilling to follow his approach should do the honorable thing and resign. The dual messaging highlights Trump's current political strategy, extending a hand to North Korea while projecting a more forceful image at home. Isung-jae, Arirang News.
And South Korea celebrates its 77th Armed Forces Day today with a commemoration ceremony at the Garyongdae complex, home to the Army, Navy, and Air Force headquarters. Around 5,000 people will gather for the event. A military parade featuring troops and weapons held over the past 2 years will not be staged this time, and instead, advanced weapon systems incorporating artificial intelligence and the latest technologies will be on display this year. There will also be a military-civilian combined taekwondo demonstration, an aerial formation flight, and an aerobatic performance by the Black Eagles. Choi Chang-sik, an ROK Army Major General who did not graduate from the Korean Military Academy, will oversee this year's ceremony. It's the first time in 7 years for a non-KMA graduate to serve as the parade commander. So today, October 1st, marks Armed Forces Day here in South Korea. For more on this, we're joined today by Chun In-bum, Lieutenant General, retired and former commander of South Korea's Special Forces. General John, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So it's been years since either side of the Korea has carried out an attack, but North and South Korea are still technically at war. Do you think a full-scale conflict is actually a real possibility?
Well, as you said, technically we are still in a state of war. But for the past 80 years, we've been very successful, despite many challenges and tribulations, to maintain relative stability and peace on the peninsula, and with which we have been able to build a great nation. This is partly to the great alliance that we have with the United States and the great men and women who serve today and before and in the future in the Korean military. But we still need to be very vigilant. There are challenges to come and invest and sacrifice. And as long as we remember that freedom is not free, I believe that stability, that peace can be maintained.
Right, you just said we still need to be vigilant, although we have been successful for many years. What many are worried about is whether Korean troops can actually defend the country in case of a war. And at the same time, South Korea is now a major arms exporter, and a lot of these weapons might be on display at today's Armed Forces Day ceremony. How would you assess South Korea's current military capabilities?
So the South Korean military is one of the best militaries in the world. There's no doubt about that. But we face a lot of challenges. And the most challenging issue right now is shortage of people. Now, I know the government and the military is trying to fix this, but so far we have not been able to say that we have achieved success. I think that we need really powerful and drastic measures to fix this problem as soon as possible. Although artificial intelligence, robots, and drones will help the situation, it will not be a solution. We need to be able to invest in people. And today, I think we'll see a glimpse of the great Korean soldiers, men and women, who are protecting us now. But we need to make sure that they have the right kind of equipment, training, and that their morale is high. They need to be paid better than now.
Right, and there are also concerns about the number of American troops possibly being reduced or even withdrawing from South Korea. Do you think that could actually happen? And if it does, how should South Korea be prepared?
The United States military is conducting an overall reform of its military capabilities and relooking at its priorities. So this is not just a Korea Peninsula issue. Now, I do not foresee U.S. forces cutting down its level of troops on the Korean Peninsula. There could be some adjustments, but overall, capability is either maintained or, in fact, going to be improved. So I don't think that we need to be concerned about this. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we understand that Koreans, we must defend our own country. That is our priority. The United States is a great ally, a reliable ally, but we cannot delegate our responsibility to defend our own nation. So whether the United States reduces its forces is a separate matter. They will not reduce the capabilities or their commitment unless we do not do our part.
Right, and speaking of defending our own country, there are doubts over U.S. so-called nuclear umbrella, and some say South Korea should have its own nuclear weapons and should be armed. What's your view on this?
I have absolute faith in the Korea-U.S. alliance. I trust the Americans to fulfill their commitment to the treaty that we have signed on, especially the NPT. They have promised that as long as Korea does not develop nuclear weapons, that they would provide nuclear protection for the Korean people. Now, having said that, we live in an uncertain world. Our American ally needs help. we're in an age where we need to rethink how we see things. So one of the things that we might want to rethink is South Korean nuclear weapons. To me, it is an extension of U.S. nuclear deterrence. In this uncertain world, because of the drastic changes that we see, I believe that no matter how you trust and believe in the maintenance of the present system, that because of that little uncertainty that exists, that South Korea would benefit by having its own nuclear deterrent. And I believe that it is an extension of U.S. capability, alliance capability. But having said that, I must warn the Korean people that having nuclear weapons brings great responsibility. Having nuclear weapons will not replace our necessity to have a strong alliance with the United States. And having nuclear weapons will not reduce defense spending. Nuclear weapons in itself will cost a lot of money. So we need to remember that.
Right, a lot of things to consider before we make any drastic decisions. All right, General, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I want to congratulate the Korean Armed Forces.
All right, thank you. Meanwhile, Seoul says German-style absorption unification that North Korea fears is not the path South Korea is seeking. Speaking at an international forum on the Korean Peninsula in Berlin, South Korea's Unification Minister Chung Dong-young said on Tuesday that the unification process must be gradual, phased, and peaceful. He highlighted that North Korea is a political entity in its own right, and unlike East Germany, it cannot be directly compared. The minister stressed that a Berlin Wall-style collapse on the Korean Peninsula is difficult to imagine in reality. He also called for peaceful coexistence, not hostility, while noting that through a transition toward peace, the two Koreas can discuss exchanges and renewed engagement. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has made his first and his last visit to South Korea before stepping down. He met with President Lee Jae-myung in Busan, and hoping to bring their ties closer, the two leaders announced a joint consultative body to tackle social issues such as aging populations. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
After around a month since their last talks in Tokyo, the leaders of the two neighbors sat down again, this time in South Korea's southeastern city of Busan. The summit began with a welcome ceremony by the traditional guard of honor, presenting a procession of the centuries-old Joseon Tongsinsa diplomatic mission, a symbol of the long-standing exchanges between the two neighbors. It was more of a farewell meeting for Ishiba, but a message to continue cooperation was clear.
한국과 일본이 물리적으로 가까운 이 거리만큼 정서적으로도 경제적으로도 또 사회 문화적으로도 안보상으로나 정말로 가까워지길 바랍니다.
The sentiment was echoed by the Japanese leader.
I sincerely think that it's meaningful to conclude my last summit diplomacy with President Lee. I hope we can interact more often to yield more outcomes from our shuttle diplomacy.
President Lee Jae-myung and Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced a joint message to operate a joint consultative body on tackling population decline and revitalizing regions outside their respective capitals. Their focus was also on resuming their joint cooperative committee on science and technology, ways to cooperate for denuclearization of the peninsula, as well as partnership at a time of the fast-changing global trade order. The meeting was followed by a dinner, during which snowcraft from Ishiba's hometown of Totori Prefecture, as well as Korean galbijjim from I's hometown of Andong, and other dishes representing harmony. Ishiba is on a 2-day visit to South Korea, which is his first and will be the last visit before he steps down as Prime Minister in October. It's the first time in 21 years that a Japanese leader is visiting a city other than Seoul for a bilateral summit. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Ishiba paid a visit to the grave of the late Lee Soo-hyun in Busan, a Korean student who sacrificed his life in 2001 to rescue a Japanese man who had fallen onto the tracks at a railway station in Tokyo. No other sitting Japanese prime minister has done so. Meantime, First Lady Kim Hae-kyung has been diagnosed with an ear disease, causing dizziness, and was unable to attend the meeting. What's key from here is how to carry on bilateral cooperation with a looming leadership change in Japan at a time of rising global uncertainty in politics and trade. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Meanwhile, the first governmental working group meeting between South Korea and the U.S. on visa issues took place in Washington on Tuesday local time. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the U.S. has allowed Korean companies investing in the United States to use temporary business visitor B-1 visa holders to install foreign purchased equipment. The same will also be applied to those entering the United States under the ESTA visa waiver program. The two countries have also agreed on opening a Korean investor desk in October, providing a communication channel for Korean companies to discuss visa-related issues. It's AI week here in South Korea. Global tech giants, leading domestic companies, government officials, and academics have gathered in Seoul to engage in focused discussions on a roadmap toward innovation in the AI ecosystem. Our economic correspondent Moon Ji-young has more.
AI Week, a place to have a peek at South Korea's AI innovation landscape, kicked off in Seoul on Tuesday, hosted by the Ministry of Science and ICT. The event serves as a national strategic platform to showcase Korea's vision and cooperation across AI industries, policies, technologies, and networking. This three-day event saw the full participation of global tech giants such as OpenAI and Perplexity. Perplexity outlined its strategy for targeting the broader Asian market, including South Korea, while OpenAI highlighted the critical importance of the Korean market.
Fundamentally, it comes down to when you look at any given metric, whether that's user adoption, whether that's the government support for AI, whether that's how companies are deploying AI, on all of those different vectors, Korea is really leading the charge.
Meanwhile, cutting-edge AI solutions were on full display in the exhibition area, including digital healthcare. One company introduced an AI-based life care service specifically designed for elderly people living alone.
As single-person households continue to increase and Korea has already entered a super-age society with the population over 65 growing, we expect the demand for our service to rise significantly.
This care service utilizes IoT sensors and AI algorithms to monitor the daily activities of elderly users remotely, providing timely alerts to family members in case of emergencies. In addition, visitors could explore a wide range of innovative technologies, including large language models, robotics, AI semiconductors, and cloud technologies. The event also featured a town hall meeting where the Minister of Science announced a national AI vision. This session included open discussions with participants, highlighting the government's efforts to develop policies in cooperation with the public. With this ambitious vision, South Korea aims to become one of the world's top 3 AI powerhouses. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Starting off in the U.S., the White House Budget Office has announced that the U.S. government will shut down at midnight, with a memorandum ordering agencies to begin executing their closure plans. The memo, signed by Russell Vought, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, came after senators were unable to pass a funding bill to keep the government running. It blamed Democrats for what it called an untenable posture and said it is unclear how long the shutdown will last. Federal employees are directed to report to work for their next scheduled shift, but only to complete shutdown procedures before being furloughed. Essential staff in defense, law enforcement, and emergency services will remain on duty without pay. The move marks the start of the 15th shutdown in U.S. history and comes after days of deadlock between President Trump and congressional Democrats. Economists warn the shutdown will delay key economic data and could rattle global markets. Turning to the Middle East, President Trump has issued an ultimatum to Hamas to accept a U.S.-backed plan to end the Gaza war, describing it as the group's best chance to avoid further bloodshed. The 20-point framework already endorsed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu includes a ceasefire, the disarmament of Hamas, and the opening of humanitarian corridors. The U.S. says it has backing from regional partners as well. Trump told reporters that Hamas has 3 or 4 days to respond or face consequences. Hamas officials on Tuesday said the proposal is being discussed by the militant group. Analysts say it's a high-stakes gamble. If Hamas accepts, it could pave the way for peace talks and international reconstruction aid. If it rejects, Israel could escalate operations and violence may spread further into the region. The ultimatum comes as Gaza faces worsening humanitarian conditions, with aid agencies warning of shortages of food, water, and medical supplies. In the Philippines, a powerful earthquake rocked the Central Islands on Tuesday morning, leaving at least 5 people dead. The tremor struck near Cebu, one of the country's largest urban centers. The U.S. Geological Survey measured the quake at a magnitude 6.9. Thousands fled into the streets in Cebu City and neighboring provinces fearing aftershocks. Authorities confirmed at least 5 deaths and dozens of injuries. Damage was reported to homes, businesses, and infrastructure, though no tsunami warning was issued. Emergency crews are now inspecting bridges, hospitals, and other critical facilities. Officials say residents should remain alert as strong aftershocks remain possible. Researchers in Hungary have found that dogs can classify objects based on their purpose. In a study by Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest, dogs were asked to fetch toys labeled as fetch or pull. When new toys were introduced that looked different but had the same function, the dogs still correctly selected the toy based on its function. The findings published in Current Biology suggest dogs can extend learned labels to functionally similar objects, an ability usually linked to young children. Scientists say the results highlight how much more there is to discover about canine intelligence.
October has begun and the autumn leaves are slowly starting to change color. The first autumn foliage and its peak are both expected to arrive later than average this year. Then white temperature swings will continue across much of Korea today, so please dress in layers to avoid catching a cold. Afternoon highs will go up slightly higher than yesterday, getting up to 26 degrees here in the capital. Daegu, Busan will be warmer at 28 degrees. And we can finally expect sunny skies nationwide today. Then rain is in the forecast from tomorrow night for Jeollanam-do and Jeju. National Foundation Day, which is the start of the long Chuseok holiday on Friday, looks like it's going to be a rainy one, and it will rain across Korea through the day of Chuseok. The first round of rain is expected to pound down the southern coast of Jeollanam-do province in Jeju with more than 80 millimeters in the forecast. So take the weather into account if you plan to hit the road early to visit your hometown.
That's all for today's New Day at Arirang. Thanks for watching. We'll be back shortly with our live coverage of South Korea's Armed Forces Day ceremony starting at 10 a.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.